Hi, and welcome to the SMARTA Podcast. I am truly so excited for today's episode to begin because for the first time ever, here on the podcast, I have brought not one, but two people, and we're going to have a debate, a conversation of two. How excited are you for that? I am. It's the 63rd episode, and it's about time we got two to make a party. You'll hear from Marnie Stockman and Coniglio, the dynamic duo behind The Business of You, a groundbreaking project helping students move from confusion to clarity and from quiet to confident. And if you're a student listening to this right now, just know that all of their work and the new book, The Business of You, that came out on August is meant for you. If you're stuck in your career or you feel like you just need clarity because you're working your way on to getting that first internship for a job, you're getting that first interview, possibly even for a job or for university, this is the best episode you could listen to. Together, both of my guests sit at the intersection of education, business, and technology, and they bring decades of business leadership onto the podcast. Marnie started her journey in the classroom teaching high school math, one of the toughest audiences out there, before moving into the edtech world where she rose to leadership and co-founded a SaaS company that achieved an 8-figure acquisition in just 3 years. Her superpower is creating a meaningful connection that sparks growth and lasting impact. Nick Coniglio is a seasoned technology veteran with over 30 years in IT, leadership, and entrepreneurship. He went from a programmer to an executive, from startup founder to mentor. He's helped 4 companies scale to remarkable growth and successful exits. His strengths are curiosity, patience, and the creative problem solving that turns big challenges into bigger opportunities. Together, these two bring the message that career readiness starts with self-awareness, which we'll be talking about today. Through their book and their upcoming app, they're helping a new generation of students to ask better questions, tell their story with confidence, and take ownership of their personal and professional growth. Now, you're going to learn why soft skills are becoming ever more so important, why you need to learn how to master them today, why you should treat yourself like a startup, like you're a business. Would you invest in yourself as you are now if your actions today match and reflect to the ones that you want to become in the future or not? And with that, I invite you to the first ever debate on the SMARTA Podcast. Enjoy.
Hey, it's Sonia, and welcome to the SMARTA Podcast.
Marnie, Nick, welcome on the SMARTA Podcast.
Oh, excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
So excited to be here.
Right? It's my first conversation debate, and you've already got the books behind you two. Where I want to take you first, let's do Marnie, then Nick, is for the person listening right now, what would you say are the top 3 most important takeaways that the listener won't want to miss?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the framework and let Nick hit you with the 3. How's that? So today, students are in a world that has never happened before with this AI revolution. So we grown-ups, adults, schools can't really say we're preparing them for what we know they're going to be doing in the future. So we are in the midst of a character revolution, and that means it is your soft skills, not your technical skills, that's going to be mission critical. So I'll let Nick take it from there.
Yeah, and I think, we love to recite some facts, Sonia. I think, there are studies out there that show that 85% of success is based off of soft skills. And other studies that show that self-awareness is the number 1 predictor of leadership success. So we're all about the soft skills. And Marnie talks about the fact that we are in a character revolution, right? Yeah. Yes, automation, AI, it's absolutely everywhere. But what it's doing is it's really commoditizing skills, hard skills, traditional skills, technical skills. It's the human interaction that is going to differentiate you and allow you to stand out. And our argument is that every individual is a business. And we'd like to ask the question, if you were a business, would somebody else invest in you? And our point is, whether you realize it or not, you're running yourself as a business, and it's time to start doing the work to manage yourself like one and really build out those human skills that I think everyone would recognize have been degrading over the past 5 to 10 years. We've been so addicted to not interacting with people, to reciting facts and not telling stories. So our takeaways are, it's time to start doing the work. It's time to start building your own business and treating yourself like one. And hopefully people will invest in you.
And to add on to something that you said, if you don't know the answer to that question, would you invest in yourself? It's a no. And that I was nodding my way through this when I was listening to the audiobook, because I know so many of my family and of my colleagues in school that act like they're already qualified or are professional. But the real question is, when you strip away all of the confidence, there are no real back facts or experience or the go-to attitude that makes the foundation of, someone wanting to invest in you because they see that potential. With that, I want to link you onto self-awareness, because in the business of you emphasize that it's actually the foundation of success.
Yeah.
For a teenager like me listening right now, where should they start when trying to figure out what they are?
So it's interesting. We find all the time, as you're heading to university or heading to a job, folks will ask you the question, tell me about yourself. Oh. And that is where we see teenagers and 20s. I mean, honestly, even folks much later in their career freeze up when they are asked that question. So with self-awareness, we say you need to start, you are your chief human resource officer. So that means you need to think about your core values. And that is not as easily done as folks would think, where I could just say, oh, Sonia, what's your core values? And you can, say, oh, it's friendship and harmony and learning. People have to do the work and think about their stories. So I think they have to start by thinking about what's a thread through their life that plays out in lots of different ways in how they act and behave and what's important to them.
And that also adds on to the purpose of what your passion is. Why do you wake up every day? Who you are as a person, what you want to do, and why are you doing it for? And then what's the best medium to deliver it in? Is it a book like The Business of You? Is it an app like the Blue app, which we're going to dive in later? And Nick, I want to address this question to you now, because it's all about the better future. You have already a background in IT and tech. You talk about the importance of asking the right questions in the book. What's one question every student should ask themselves this week that can then propel them to move forwards in their career?
Yeah, we talk a lot about self-reflection, but if I had to boil it down to one question, thinking about my younger self, right? It would really be about, what is the one thing that I can do this week that my future self will thank me for, right? And I think when you frame it like that, it shifts the focus from pressure. Okay, I got to get things done. I got to get things done, to progress. And I have a 21-year-old son, and there are pressures all around him. What is his internship going to be? What's his job going to be? And are you getting good grades? Are you not going out too late at night? All these pressures coming on. You got to really break that down and focus on progress. Okay, what could I do this week that is going to help my future self? And I think that's the one question that I would start with if I would roll back the clock 30 years to being a student again, for sure.
Marnie, how would you answer the question of how do I find myself?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think it lies in your stories. So if I asked you to think about 3 impactful stories in your life right now, I suspect something comes to mind. I did this actually at a big holiday dinner with so I have 6 nieces that are all in their 20s. I asked this question and think about your 3 stories, and then what do they all have in common? And when you start picking that apart, you start seeing, oh, what's key here is some personality trait starts to, show up over and over again. And then we like to say, how does that become your superpower? Because that's where the magic happens. Case in point, if you find that you really like helping people, and helper comes out, right? You're really proud of yourself when you've helped someone. Then helper is not a job job, right? You don't get paid just for help, but there's so many jobs where helper is key. You can be a nurse, a doctor, a teacher, a medic, a fireman, a police, like there are lots of different ways to do that. But if you find really what you're proud of doing, the behaviors that fall behind that, I think that's the first key to unlock where you're going, who you're becoming.
Yeah. What is the difference, in your opinion, between confidence and self-promotion?
Nick.
We're boiling down into.
I think of confidence as saying, this is who I am, right? And again, we've talked about it. That is the self-reflection, where self-promotion is, look how great I am. And I think those sound similar, but they're really different. If you focus and you're honest about what your strengths are, and it's not just your strengths, it's what your weaknesses are, right? Yeah. Being vulnerable, your goals, your growth. If you're constantly focusing on honesty and who you are and being true to that, you're never going to sound boastful. You're going to sound real. And I think there's a magic with people who are truly authentic, because they are who they speak they are, right? As opposed to somebody, it's obvious. I mean, you just know when somebody is being too self-promoting, because they're reciting the checklist of items that they've done, and you're always questioning. But if you're always honest with yourself and you truly understand who you are, again, that is the key to everything. And that's really what Marty and I aim to get at, is to say, okay, this is how you do it. It's not going through just a list of words. Let's engage them through activities to figure out, okay, this is who you are. And it's not just by identifying your strengths. It's what frustrates you, what your weaknesses are. We call them kryptonites, all those types of things. And as long as you're authentic, you're going to come across confident. When you're not authentic, inauthentic, that's when it turns out to be, okay, this is a little braggadocious, a little promotion, self-promotion. And that's something that I always struggled with when I was younger. But I've learned, okay, if I'm being honest with myself and authentic, and I'm telling people about myself, it doesn't really come across as boastful.
Mm-hmm. I got this question inside my head now that just sprang to mind when you were talking to me about this. And let's say in the scenario of an interview, whether it's for university or for a job, what is the perfect equation? The answer, tell me about yourself.
I think it starts with understanding sort of a tagline for yourself. So that can tie a thread through several stories that you're going to tell in an interview. So the wrong formula is, let's start listing facts. And by golly, I've seen enough TikToks to show there are plenty of poor formulas out there. But what I like is, I've worked with one student who he comes in and he says, I am the quiet introvert, and then explains why that's his superpower. So that's interesting when people are thinking, okay, so this kid knows himself, I'm an introvert, but then he explains that that's his superpower and can tie a thread through a few of the things in his resume that he really wants to highlight. Because what they want to know is that you know who you are and that you've learned from your experiences. So I would say, I'm an energetic educator. And you might say, wait, you just wrote a book. Why would you say that? But I can tell a story about how I was a high school teacher. I was a CEO of a company, and I've written a book, and they're all me being an educator. So that's the magic, I think.
Storytelling is 22 times more effective than just reciting facts. And when we work with students, that is their default. That's their default behavior when they are asked, okay, tell me about yourself. They're just going through their resume, their CV, saying, okay, this is what I did here. This is what I did here. This was my GPA. You need to tell stories. And when we work with students, and we talk about, okay, identify who you are. That's the HR department. And then think about collecting the story banks, right, on on what that actually means. So when Marnie says she's an enthusiastic educator, she has a whole bunch of stories that she could use to answer any specific question. I am a quiet problem solver. I have a whole bunch of stories that I could use. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about, a time that you were stressed and you overcame, a project deadline or something like that. I have stories that are completely in line with that thread that Marnie was talking about. So not to beat, to keep beating the drum here, but that the fact that self-awareness is important, doing the work is important to identify what those stories are, because they are authentic. They are you. And it's really important when that first question comes across, okay, tell me about yourself, that you know exactly how you're going to frame a story, much more so than framing facts.
And it's not as intimidating as it looks. I actually just came 2 hours ago from having my first university interview. And I was debating, should I reschedule it? Because I've got this podcast coming up. Should I stick with it? And I decided, do you know what? I think if I told another person I am doing the podcast, I think they'd look at the podcast more intimidating than the actual interview itself. And I thought, I'm just going to go with it.
Glad you did.
Yeah. And I think I pretty much killed it. So
excellent.
Thank you. And Nick, I want to add onto something that you said. Storytelling is literally a game changer when you approach any person, whether they're still a young professional or a seasoned executive. They will remember how you made them feel rather than the facts that you told them. And I think that's something really important with the business of you that you're trying to get across, is that through these stories and the technical jargon that students like me might not be yet accustomed with, you sort of lean them in through that transition that's really intimidating. So I want to talk to you a little more about actions. In particular, what small steps could we as students take in order to take that ownership in our future?
Yeah, and we've talked about a couple. I think one that a very small step that any student can take today is to be intentional and do some sort of reflection. It doesn't have to be daily, weekly. You can just start with something simple: what worked and what didn't work. In whatever environment, whether it was your coursework, whether it was, a networking event that you tried, with a team meeting, it doesn't matter. Just do some sort of reflection. The power of reflection is really, really important. I'll just throw off two other, I'm sure Marnie has much better responses to this, but, my superpower, I believe, it took me a while to realize this, is the fact that I listened and was curious and asked more questions than I'd answered. So one small step a student can take, and I encourage my son and the people that we work with, is to find somebody you admire and just think of a couple of questions that you could ask them. Everybody has, whether it's a parent, a teacher, professor, what have you, everybody has somebody that they admire. Start asking them some questions and be intentional in thinking about that. And then the last one I'll throw out there before Marnie gives us the real good answers is take a small risk. Join something, volunteer, apply for something that's a little bit of a stretch. And, that does a couple of things. Number one, it gets you into an uncomfortable zone, which is really important, which might help you build resilience, which is critical. Resilience is one of the biggest skills out there, but it also helps you build confidence that as a student, you're going to need that confidence once you start having those bigger plans and feeling, okay, I'm really going after something. You need to realize that risks are going to be part of the equation. So start getting used to taking risks now, just small risks that are safer. So Marnie, what did I miss on that?
Well, first, Sonia, I think it should be clear to you now that Nick not only asks the right questions, but also gives better answers. So his answers were very good. But I do have one other that I like to talk about when I work with students. And in the book, we talk about you're your own chief financial officer. And a lot of people think, oh, that means money, right? How am I going to make money and invest? But we talked about at the beginning, would you invest in you? And what Nick and I like to talk about is, how are you investing your time? Because that is the biggest way for you to help yourself. So I would challenge folks to think, okay, let's do a little audit of our day, and how am I spending my time? And is that 45 minutes that I spent doom scrolling, in fact, making me a better human? If it is, then doom scroll away. I would love to hear what you're thinking there. If it's not, then what could you do in those minutes that could make you a better version of you?
I 100% agree. And I think it's also so valuable if you just spend 1 week tracking your regular habits, the bad ones, the good ones. How do you divide your day? And then you have that analysis like at the end in the weekend. And you're really frank with yourself if the actions that you are doing today reflect the person you want to become tomorrow. And with that, I want to bring in the app, the Blue app, because at the end of the book, it was 2 questions. If Sarah is real, yes and no. And then if the Blue app is something that's real and it's coming. So you both talk about turning insight into action with it. How does technology help bridge that gap between self-discovery and actually doing the work?
Yeah. Nick, you want to take it?
Yeah. So the secret with all this is the fact that we didn't intend on writing The Business of You, the book. We were really aiming to create the app first, because it is our mission, really to help as many young people as possible, with this win the character revolution at scale in an equitable fashion. So in the book, the lead character, Sydney, she meets this magical mentor and she starts using this app, which was our goal the whole time. So the app Blue is all about this self-discovery. It's all about running the business of you. And really what our goal is we want to turn learning into challenges, not necessarily chores. We believe that learning should be fun. That's the most effective way for people to learn. So the app is all about, okay, how do I engage the user to learn about themselves, to ask the right questions, to surround themselves with the correct support network in a way that's fun? I mean, let's be honest. We live in a gamer generation. People, are very big into understanding, okay, I know how to play games. So we nudge students to kind of apply what they learn immediately through actions, through reflections, through missions. So growth becomes a habit and really someday a goal. So that's what we believe technology can do. We believe it could impact many more people than just one-on-one coaching or mentoring or things like that, although that's still important. But we really want to turn learning into challenging games and engaging games, as opposed to feeling like it's a chore.
And can I add something real quick there? Because on the term of AI with technology here, everyone is worried, or was worried before, when Gen AI wasn't even a thing and machine learning was what we were referring to it, is that we thought AI was going to take our job. And actually, people that do use AI will get taken and picked over the ones that don't. So, Marnie, do you have anything you want to fill in on that?
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree with that more. The cat is out of the bag, right? So you're going to have to adjust for sure. And I think that is part of why always learning, one, is critically important, right? If you choose to ignore that, you're going to be left behind. But really understanding your superpowers, if 85% of success is based on your soft skills, then it's really not about how you use AI. Right? Or if you use AI, it's about the value that you bring. And we talk about the notion of 2 ladders, a credential ladder and a value ladder. And oh my goodness, it's so easy. I found another platform yesterday I'd never heard of before, where you could just rack up all of these credentials. But again, that is a specific skill that AI may in fact take that skill. But if you understand the value you're bringing to the world, that you're bringing to a company, that is outside of how the work gets done, right? You understand the value that you're bringing. So that is what's critically important, is to understand what value you are bringing, because AI is just a tool to help you bring it.
Can I just add to that? I think everybody realizes this, but AI is really, really good at replacing repetitive, automated tasks. What AI is absolutely horrible at are thinking like a human. And so I think this whole notion of AI, and God knows I use it every day, I think it's an important skill to have. But if you're concerned about AI, I think rightly so, there will be some jobs that will be replaced by AI. That it's already happening today. But there'll be other jobs that open up, and it's really focusing a premium on the human skills, which, like we said at the beginning, have been degrading over the past 10 to 15 years. So if we all start to focus on the things that AI does not do well, right, that's where we're going to stand out and differentiate ourselves. And it's only going to be elevated. The importance of that is only going to be elevated as AI becomes more and more prevalent throughout society.
I mean, connections, relationships, right? People have always said people don't buy from a company, they buy from a person. They want to build that relationship. That's still critically important.
Absolutely. And because you touched upon humanity and the importance of these soft skills, what are the top 3 most important ways we can actually become better at our soft skills today, which, are becoming ever so prominent every day?
I think Nick said it at the beginning, take a risk is the first. Think about something that stretches you a little bit outside your comfort zone. That is a great way to be vulnerable. Another soft skill that's critically important.
Yeah.
Nick, what are you thinking?
I think we all need to realize it. Number one, you have to put in the work. That is one theme, and it's not a miracle that happens overnight. But, I would start small, right? Be that person who follows through on things. Ask more questions than you answer. Make others feel seen and supported. This soft skills, it's behavior, right? It's not just a label you put onto somebody. It's behavior, and you need to start thinking about reflecting on are you actually following through on those behaviors? And it steamrolls, right? You get momentum. You start doing little things, and you start to realize, okay, this is actually working. So start small. Work on it. There's a ton of great resources out there. If you're a podcast follower, listen to this podcast, right? If you're a book reader, read our book. But you got to do the work yourself. You got to be intentional about it.
Absolutely. I think now's the perfect time we can dive into setbacks or self-doubt, because a lot of people now are stepping into a new milestone in their life, and possibly they're encountering, this intimidating fear of the unknown, and how do we overcome it? So Marnie, and then I'll go to you, Nick, your story as an educator turned into tech founder personally became back from self-doubt. So I want to ask you, how did you overcome that self-doubt that you possibly encountered?
Imposter syndrome is very real. It lives strong within this one for sure. But I also love a challenge. And so there is, we've said how many times already, you have to do the work. So I love a challenge and I love learning. So I think always assuming that you don't necessarily know the answer, but you know how to get there. That's really powerful. I can remember my daughter was 14 or 15, and she was doing a reel when reels first became a thing, and she was going to show people how to do something. And she was videoing her iPad, and she said, if this works, it's now going to be on the computer. And she said, no, scratch that. It's going to work. I'm going to figure this out. And I thought, oh, that's so good, right? She is going to figure it out. She's going to know how to do it. So I think it is that confidence that you are a learner. The answer is out there and you can figure it out is how I work through self-doubt one way. The other way is surround yourself with your people. So Nick and I talk regularly, daily about whatever is going on that helps brainstorm. When you have a partner to help you bounce ideas off and who is willing to call you out when you're wrong. Well, I think that is critically important to find the people that you trust to push you and challenge you, and have the confidence to take that feedback earnestly.
And also have the people that clap for you when you're in your low sides and when you're actually being successful, because a lot of you will be there when you're going through hard times, but when you're having success, that's when you find out actually the real people.
I always say surround yourself with your harshest critics and your biggest fan, and they should be the same people.
And Nick, how do you personally bounce back from setbacks?
I think it's important that you separate the event, the failure itself, from who you are and your identity. It's funny, Marnie and I start every single day with, what does success look like today? And you know what? We don't always end the day saying, okay, we were successful. And, we break it down into very small increments so we don't actually hit this huge failure, but we fail quite a bit. And honestly, every good thing that has happened in both my professional and my personal life has been initiated from failure. And I think it's important to realize failure is feedback. It's no fun when you go through it, but if you take the time to kind of actually admit that you did fail and then do the reflection on, okay, why did it fail? I think it's incredibly valuable. And I think it's funny that I have now authored 2 personal development and personal leadership books, because I was one of those accidental leaders in my mid-20s, late 20s, where I was thrust into a leadership position and I failed miserably. I was not a good leader. But I eventually realized it was because I was not being authentic, and I was just overwhelmed with things, and I was just all the stress and anxiety. But I did struggle from it, but I bounced back from it, and it's made me stronger and better today. And I think if you look at failure as an opportunity for growth, it's hard to do, but it goes back to what I said earlier. You got to start taking risks and start getting used to it, because you build resilience and you start seeing those things that, okay, failure is not the end all be all. It's really an opportunity to identify and improve. And that's critical for anybody who wants to become their best version.
Stephen Bartlett has this phrase that, what if you were only 30 failures away from reaching success? Ooh. And then that motivates you to actually fail fast, fail more until you get to the great point. And that's why I'm nodding my way through this. And I absolutely agree, because I find failure in my life as exactly what you said, Nick, opportunity for growth. And it fuels you to learn from that experience and grow and do it better next time.
I'm going to put out 30 more bad TikTok reels, and I'm hoping the 31st will be great. I'm going to take that piece of advice, Sonia.
Maybe that's the one that hits, booms overnight. Gets you 10 million views. Who knows? You never know. Yeah. There's this author that said, I will publish 10 books because it's inevitable that at least one becomes a New York Times bestselling one. And so now I think he's got over 30 books, and he has Sunday Times bestseller, Wall Street Journal Times bestselling books, and he's constantly putting out more. And success is just coming back to him because he's not giving room for failure to grow. And I think this is super important when also we talk about balance in between our finance and our purpose, because you write about connecting who you are with what you do. So I want to ask you, how can young people today find the balance between earning a living and staying true to their purpose?
I have a couple ideas on that. First, I heard a quote by the comic Chris Rock, who said, "Follow your dream if they're hiring." Right? So,
Yeah.
like you might not be there yet, right? If you want to be a musician, or you want to be an artist, or you want to be a rock star, that's not a job you just knock on the door fresh, without any experience and get. And so you can always be working toward that. But yeah, we also do need to survive and have to. So you're aiming to find something that aligns with skills that you have, that can pay, that can pay for daily life, but also you should learn from that. So what skill are you developing? I sometimes start presentations and have the person announcing me to just list the jobs that I've had, but don't give any context around it. And then I'll go up and say, so they just listed 7 jobs. You probably think I can't hold a job and are wondering why you should listen to me, right? And they all kind of laugh like, okay, one of those jobs was a knitting shop. So yeah, I'm not sure what we're going to get out of you, lady. But then when we talk about what you learn at each job, and again, in each job, although they're very different, the thread of being a teacher has followed along the way. So how can you take what you are good at, what you bring to the party, to a job that will support and pay the bills? What can you learn from that job in terms of new skills that will let you find the next thing that you want to do? I mean, they say millennials will go through at least 7 jobs. I'm not a millennial and I've gone through 7 jobs. So if I can do it, for sure, everyone else is expecting it of everybody else. Nick, what are you thinking for that?
Yeah, I think this is a tough one because there's such a focus on today's generation to have that balance, and I recognize the importance of that balance. My 21-year-old son, what I tell him is that your purpose doesn't have to be your paycheck on day one, and I think that's what Marnie was saying. And you start by choosing work that lets you, like Marnie said, learn and grow and build skills that you're evaluating. You're saying, okay, what do I like? Because not everybody knows the answer at such a young age. But as time goes on, right, you start to use those skills and move closer to work that aligns with your values. I think it's important for everybody to realize you will be incredibly fortunate if day one, your first entrance into the workforce, you are 100% aligned with your passions and what drives you, your values. I think if you're chasing that makes things awfully difficult. So let's break it down. Like Marnie said, let's focus on trying to identify the skills that really move you, getting some experience, some exposure, developing network of people that can support you. So once you find those 2 things out, that you're better prepared to jump on an opportunity that more closely aligns with your purpose.
Mm-hmm. Nick, Marnie, can I bring you into the SMARTA Podcast traditions? I think we've tied it off perfectly because I can't think of a possible more thing I can pull out from student experiences, your book, and I've just got 4 fire questions I want to ask you and find out your answers from the both of you. So, are you ready?
I hope so.
My first question, which I have to think of a different way to do it, is a 60-second challenge. So maybe Marnie, if you do it for 30 seconds, and then Nick for 30, is where you pitch your book, The Business of You, to the person listening. Whenever you're ready.
Say go. Well, I would say that if you are curious about how to become the best version of you, we don't have the answers, but we have the questions so you can figure out your answer.
Nick?
Wow. That wasn't even 30 seconds.
Sorry, Nick, were you wanting more think time?
No. I will. Yes, I was wanting more think time. But the book itself is a story about somebody who feels like they're doing all the right things, right? They got good grades, they've developed the right connections, they've had the right job experiences, but they still feel stuck. They're not having success in getting that internship, that job, finding out more about themselves. So I think it's a playbook really to help young people treat themselves like a startup, discover who they are, telling their story, building a career with purpose. And I think it's done in such a way that young people will be very interested, and parents of young people will be very interested. I think it's a unique perspective on how to think about pursuing what's next in life for young people out there. And I highly recommend that people take a look at it.
Mm-hmm. Great job. My second question to you, we're just going to run through these quickly, is where I asked my last guest to leave a question for the next one. And so in this case, Brian Reimer left this question for the both of you. So you're both going to have a chance to answer it. How do you think leaders should embrace AI?
Well, go ahead, Nick. You start.
I think, think of AI, treat it like a co-pilot, something to assist you and not a replacement. Use it to think better, not think better, but work faster, and make room, use it and leverage it to make room for what humans do best, the creativity, the connection, judgment. Use it for all those pieces, those things that you need to automate that don't take the human skills. Marnie?
Oh, I would have said the same thing. Find ways to make it useful for you to automate it, but don't take out the element of humanity. Test yourself. If you are posting something that AI wrote, could you tell me what you talked about today? That's it, right? Can you go have a conversation in the street about what you're talking about online in your emails, etc.? That's the challenge. It's still the real you, right? Even though AI may assist it, if you can speak from the heart and still have that conversation, if you can't have that conversation without AI, check yourself.
This looks me back to an essay I read recently from, I think, Harvard, that said our society now is at a faster declining rate at our intellectuality and our smarts than ever. Is AI the big problem? And surprisingly, there was this test where they gave 3 different groups a task to write an essay and then to see what they've learned or memorized from what they say, if they can summarize it in around a minute. The first group had no absolute materials available to the internet, so they had to go old school, only books and their mind. The second group was allowed internet, so the way we would have looked at it a couple of years ago, and just what's available on Google. And the third group were only meant to write it with AI. At the end, only the first group could retain over 65% of what they read, and it just kept declining as you looked back at AI. So I think if we can use AI to challenge our thinking and debate with it and give us multiple perspectives, that's a good and efficient way of it. But if we used to do our work, that's a bad way, to put it in simpler terms.
Because it won't feel like your work. Yeah. Yeah. You won't even know what you've done. That's when you got to question yourself.
Yeah, you finish and you go, what did I do?
I wonder if I wrote something I would like to read today. Ooh, that does not feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. My third question, let's go Nick and then Marnie. If you could go back to your early days when you were 17, what's one piece of advice that would carry on through to present moment?
I'll keep it quick. I think, I would tell my younger self, don't chase the perfect path, chase curiosity, ask more questions, be curious about everything. And that would have served me well when I was younger.
Geez, curiosity. And Marnie, if you could talk to your younger self, what would be the advice?
I feel like I had the opportunity to do that because I had a panic attack that put me in the ER when I was 17. And basically it was because I couldn't control all the things. So I quickly had to say, if you can't control it, you got to kind of let it go. So I think accept failure and learn from that failure instead of seeing it sort of like the perfectionism piece that Nick said of like, let's learn from this instead of have it kind of debilitate you.
You've completely, I think, targeted all of the people now that sort of have this perfection look onto the world, because when I started out in high school, my first year, freshman year, I couldn't think of not doing my homework as soon as I got it, and could not think of not getting 100% on a test.
My girl, that's the one that put me in the ER.
Oh my gosh. And now I just don't panic if I go to school late. I'll just accept it. Well, I can't do anything about it. Tomorrow I can wake up earlier, and that's how I'll do it. So I think you're talking for all of our inner perfectionists to just accept it, at least for today. If tomorrow it can change. So
yeah, take action from it, but don't panic. Don't let it hold you back. Yeah.
My fourth question is all around the world of literature. I can see both of you have some books, and you can also see a big bookshelf behind me. For this, I'd usually ask you for the top 2 books, but if I'm asking each, I'd get 4. Let's see. So I won't ask 1, but 2 from you. What would you say, Marnie and Nick, are the top 2 books that changed your life?
Go ahead, Nick.
So The Go-Giver by Bob Berg, absolutely 100% changed the trajectory of our life, our careers, the whole notion of, the law of value, adding value to other people is everything and anything to us. So highly recommend. I believe you know Bob, Sonia, so that may not be a surprise. The other one might be a little less known, but there's a book called Reality is Broken by Jay McGonigal.
Oh, I just wrote that one down to say.
And it's all about how to leverage the power of games to fix real world problems. And obviously that has been a big inspiration. That book in and of itself has been a big inspiration to what we do with the Business of You and ultimately our app Blue. But it's an older book, and many people may feel like it's outdated, but it's got some great points in it that I think it's worth a good read.
So I sent that book to both of my kids when they were in university, and because I think that is the way we should think. I will say Adam Grant's Think Again would be great for the whole world to read that. And then I am all about sort of, this is along the lines of The Go-Giver, but I really liked, now I got a couple in my head. All right, I'll go with this one. Unreasonable Hospitality really makes you think about how you can go out of your way to bring value to other people. Although Be Your Future Self Now is also a good one.
Oh yeah, I know that one. And also I think Unreasonable Hospitality links on to Ron Kaufman's work with excellent service and being of just as much of a surpriser and as a, like on, Nick's terms, go-giver in Bob's book, just to give that positive energy and let people remind you and remember you for good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I started the podcast with you two, starting it off like this. I want to end it in the same way. So if you could talk directly with the person listening right now, Marnie, Nick, what's one parting advice or idea you wish to leave with the person listening?
Well, I'm wondering what question they need to ask themselves. So think about what of those ideas that we've talked about do you need to take some time to reflect on, where you might need to do some work for yourself. Do you know who you are? Nick?
I mean, that's probably what I would have said, but since Marnie said that, I'll say, you got to do the work. Start before you're ready. If you don't think you're ready, it doesn't matter. Start anyway, right? Confidence, clarity, things like that. They come from action, not from waiting. So I wish everybody out there, just let's get on it. Let's start doing these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Action is the way to go. Marnie and Nick, thank you so much for being on the SMARTA Podcast. Best of luck with the success of business for you and Blue App.
Thank you.
I just want to end with what Marnie said. You should surround yourself with people that are your harshest critic and your biggest fan. And when Nick said, don't chase the perfect path for you, but chase curiosity and also, if you've made it this far, why don't you check that you're double subscribed to the YouTube channel or follow the show and rate this podcast episode 5 stars, because it's what helps grow us the show and also bring amazing guests on here. With that being said, I'm Sonia Marta. This was the SMARTA Podcast. And if no one told you this today, I'm going to be the first to tell you that I believe in your ability to create the life of your dreams. Signing off until next Monday. Bye.